Welcome to Art by Rick. I'm Rick. On today's show, I'm going to do what's called a splash painting. This is a method where you mix paint together, lay it on the canvas, and you splash it across the canvas. The painting that you see behind me is on my dining room wall, and this is an example of what I'm going to do today. This one's a little bit different. In this painting, what I did is I took 4 different canvases and I put them together to make one large canvas. Now, I did that because first I wanted a nice big painting for the wall, and second I wanted to have the option that if I wanted to take the canvases apart, I can do a series, place them 1, 2, 3, 4 if I wanted to along a long wall, or if I had a larger space, I could actually spread the canvases apart to give me more coverage, allowing anywhere from a 1-inch to a 4-inch gap between the canvases, letting the viewer's eye kind of fill it in and put it all together. So you have some options here. I also did this one a little bit different where I did 2 different color blends. So it took a long time to dry because I had to do the first splash, let it dry, and then do the second splash. So I didn't have a mixing of colors together. This one we named Wine Splash. Somebody said it looks like spilled wine splashing across a table. So that's how it got its name. Now the painting that I'm going to do today in my studio, I went out and I bought a 36 by 48 wide canvas, one single large canvas. And in order to show you the technique, I've had to place the canvas on the floor because I don't think I could get the camera high enough to encompass the whole canvas. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to my studio. I'll show you how I mix the paints, how I lay the paints down on the canvas, and then the brush that I'll pick in order to do this splash technique. So let's head off to the studio. All right, we've come down to my studio here, and as I said, to do this splash painting, the canvas it's a 3-foot by 4-foot canvas, so it's pretty large. I couldn't put it on my work table like I normally would do. When I do splash paintings, I kind of like to have them at waist level because that allows me to get a really good swing with the brush. But in order to show you how I do this, I've had to put the canvas down on the floor. So I'm going to change the camera around and try to get a good shot of the whole canvas. It's on the floor because the camera only goes so high, so I'm trying again to cover this as best I could. But before we get to the splash, I want to talk a little bit about the last show that I did. That was called Naked Painting. I was trying to convey the idea that even though it was just a plain canvas with white paint on it, no designs, no distractions, just a naked painting. The idea was to take that white canvas and hang it somewhere dark, like on a dark wall, so that the white of the canvas would help reflect back some light in that area. Now, I don't have any really dark walls in my house. My house are either light, pale whites or light grays. So what I did was I took the painting and I took that canvas that I did, the naked painting, and I pasted it or mounted it onto a bigger black canvas. So what I came up with was this idea here. And this is just to show you the contrast. You see how the white canvas sits on the black and how much that canvas stands out? So imagine if that wall were a black wall or a dark colored wall. This is the idea so that you can have some reflection of light in that particular corner. Now, you don't have to do white. You can do, a different color as long as it's a contrasting color to where you're going to put it. That's the whole idea behind the naked painting. It's to allow the viewer to kind of look at it and imagine what they would put on it, what they would do with it. And it's also there to help reflect light back. All right, so enough about that. Let's talk about the splash painting that I'm going to do today. I'm going to mix some colors, and I'll probably do about 6 different colors. I'm going to keep the colors bright because I want to have a lot of color in this painting. and I'm going to splash them across the canvas. So I'm choosing to mix my paints where I'm going to thin them out a little bit with some acrylic medium to make them kind of watery. And I'm choosing to use a brush that's, well, it's a normal house paintbrush. It's about a 3-inch wide brush to give me enough surface to be able to grab that paint once I apply it to the canvas and splash it across. So I'm going to reset my camera to get a view of the canvas. I'll show you the mixing that I do with the colors of the paint that I'm going to use, and how my trick is how I apply the paint to the canvas to put it in a position to get that splash. Now, I will say this in preparation. If you're going to do a painting like this, if you're lucky enough to have a studio area with enough square footage where you have some room to move around, that's great. But otherwise, you want to cover everything with drop cloths, because sometimes you get a little zealous when you're splashing that paint, and you may pick up some paint on the paintbrush that doesn't necessarily stay on the canvas. It may fly on the wall or fly on the floor, and you'll have some extra cleanup if you don't cover anything. All right, so let's position the camera and look at the canvas, and we'll talk about mixing the paints, and we'll go from there to do this splash painting. Okay, now what I've done is I've laid this canvas down on the floor in my studio. The canvas is 4 feet wide, 48 inches, by 3 feet high, 36 inches. It's a white stretch canvas. Like many of the canvases that I buy, this one's stretched over a wood frame. This one's been pre-primed already with the acrylic gesso, so the canvas is already sealed, so I didn't have to seal it myself. And I'm going to spread the paint on the canvas so I can do my splashing technique. Now, I've chosen to use 6 different colors with just a chaser of black. I always use a little bit of black to kind of give some contrast. The black may be totally overwhelming if I use too much, so I just use very, very little. I've mixed these cups. You can see them at the bottom of the screen maybe. I've mixed each one of the cups with about half of the acrylic medium to half of the paint itself, using a tongue depressor or a stir stick to mix the paint as well as I can. I want the paint to be kind of liquid a little bit so that it's easy to spread. Now, I'm going to try and do this where I can demonstrate and you can kind of watch. I apologize now. I'm doing this on the floor in order to get into the positions I need to get into. You may be looking at my back, so I apologize for that. I will move out of the way if I do something that I feel maybe the camera wasn't able to see, so you can get a look at what the result looks like. And then, of course, as I always do, when the painting is finished and it's ready to set up, we'll take a look at it before we close out the show. So I've picked blue, orange, yellow, a little bit of purple, some pink, and some red as my contrasting colors. I call those my carnival colors. I kind of like to do those in paintings because they're bright and they're cheery, with just a little bit of black. So I'm going to use a 3-inch brush. So I have here a 3-inch brush. Hopefully you can see this. This is what I'm going to use. It's just a regular paintbrush. And I'm going to use this to splash the painting on the canvas. Now, one of the things you need to do when you're looking at a canvas like this, and I'll get down on one knee here, is you need to kind of look at the canvas and try to figure out where you're going to dump your paints. As you saw with the painting that I did earlier, I started at the bottom and I splashed across, and I liked that painting. So I think I'm going to do the same thing, where I'm going to put my paints onto the bottom of the canvas and then draw or splash it all the way across. I always start with a darker color because the darker colors tend to overcome the lighter colors. So I have some blue paint here in this cup. I'm going to mix it. I also use paper plates a lot, so as you can see I have a paper plate here. I'll put my paint sticks down on the paper plate to get them out of the way, and then I'll clean them later. The cups, I just basically dump the paint and I end up stacking them and throwing them out. So if I get a good mix on this, I think I've got it mixed the way that I need it to be mixed. I'm now going to just pour the paint onto the canvas. And I pour kind of a elongated pour, where I'm not, kind of pouring it all in one spot. The reasoning for that is I want to be able to get a good track as I go across. So now this is the orange. Again, nice and mixed. I'll put a little orange on here. I'm going to let it go right into the blue. And I'm also going to spread it up here towards the top and maybe on the sides. Again, I'm just dumping the orange on to give me a little bit of orange color on here. And then I'll come in with my yellow. Again, just stirring with the stick. And I'm now going to dump some yellow across the bottom here. Kind of spread it in between and up here on the top. Again, I'm just allowing this paint to mix and spread. So there's my three colors that way. Now, excuse my back, I'm going to kind of shift myself around to the other side of the canvas. Again, as I said, this is a little bit of a challenge because I have to be careful with my microfoam cord. I don't want to drag it through the paint. So kind of just excuse me while I do this. All right, so now I'm coming over to this side of the canvas, and I'm going to start with a darker color. So again, I'm going to use some purple here, and I'm just going to dump this on the canvas, kind of just spreading it here. And I'll follow that up with a little bit of the pink. Here's my pink. Okay. And lastly, I'm going to do some red. So here's my red on here. And then, as I said, I do just a little bit of black. So I'm just going to drop some black in here, just a little bit, not much. And I'll reach over here, excuse my back and my head because I'm trying to make it so you can see this. All right. So there we go. I've applied the paint onto the canvas. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to splash this paint across the canvas. So again, we use a microphone that's tethered to us, so I have to do this in such a way where I'm making sure that I got this going here. All right. So here's my brush, my 3 brush, and now I'm going to do my splash. So I basically decide what direction I'm going to go in with this, and I just kind of get ready to make this paint splash. So I'll start right here from the edge, and I'm going to splash it across the canvas. Look at that. Isn't that kind of cool? Just splashed right across the canvas. Splash it again. There we go. So there's a nice splash. I'm kind of happy with that. I like the way that that looks. So I'm going to leave that just the way it is. Maybe I'll splash it down here towards the end. There. So now we have a nice splash. And if you saw that, folks, you saw how it goes across and onto the paper. This is why it's important to cover things. Now, usually I would take the time and clean the brush so I could use it to splash the other side, but I happen to have another brush here. It's a little smaller, but I'm going to use this to splash the other side. So again, excuse my back, but I'm going to work over towards the other side of the canvas here, and I'm going to splash this across. Now again, I'm being very conscious of my cord from Nutmeg TV because I don't want to get paint on it. So just give me a second here while I'm trying to get myself in position to do this. And we'll bring this around the camera. I'm walking around the back of the camera right now so I can get into position over here. All right, so now we're on this side of the canvas, and now we're going to do that same kind of technique where I'm going to splash this across, and we're going to let it cross across the other colors here. So I've got several directions. I have a pretty wide pour of paint here, so I'll start in the middle, and I'm splashing it, and I'm splashing it, and I'm going to splash it. So there you go. Just a simple splash. Done. And I think I'll come one more direction just to get a little paint towards the edge here. And there you go. So that's what I mean about splashing. As you can see, the splashing of the paint just kind of covers the canvas. We'll let this set up a little bit. I actually have a little bit too thick of purple here, so I think I'm going to go one more time right in the middle. There we go. Just to get that to spread. So there. So how you look at this or how you're going to interpret it will depend, but that's basically splashing paint onto the canvas. So we'll let this set up and we'll take a look at it when we're holding it up when it's dry. But you don't want to do too much. You don't want to spread too much paint because you're trying to avoid it cracking. This is probably going to take a good 24 hours to set up before I can actually hold it up. But as you can see, you make sure that you cover the floor because you do spread some paint all over the place. So we'll just let this sit up. I may lift it on some cups just so it doesn't glue itself to the floor. And we'll see how it looks when it's dry. Okay, we're back at my studio. I took the painting and I lifted it up off the floor, cleaned up around it. I did over splatter past the paper, so I had to clean the floor a little bit. And I set the painting up on my work table, raising it on some paper cups to let the air get underneath it and let it dry. And I think it's dry enough to lift up and show you the finished product. But before I do that, I just wanted to share a couple of little ideas. While I'm waiting for paint to dry, usually I'll do another painting or I get involved with life or projects around the house or work or whatever I might want to do. And when I buy 24 by 30 canvases, they always come with these little things. I don't know if you can see this or not. This is a 2-inch piece of wood. It has a little bit of an angle cut on the end of it. They're made so that you can pound them into the back of the framed wood to keep the canvas taut or keep the canvas stretched to keep it from sagging, especially if you're using a bigger thing. And I don't really use these. I've used them a couple of times, but you get 2 packages with every single 2430 that you buy, and I don't use them. So I would take them and I would throw them into a barrel, and after a while I had quite a collection of them. And being a creative guy, I thought, geez, I don't want to throw those away. Maybe I could do something with them. You know, I'm an abstract artist. Maybe I can create something. So I had some fun with these. I was actually looking at getting some glue and maybe gluing them onto a canvas and making some kind of a design. So I want to show off a little bit. Let me grab one of the ones that I did. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is one of the ones that I put together. I simply glued 2 canvases together and painted some branches on it and then used the sticks as my leaves on the branches. And I thought it came out quite nice. It's something to look at, but I wasn't too happy with the colors here. It's blonde wood on a light colored canvas. So I decided to get a little more fancy. Again, excuse my walking away from the camera. And what I did was I came up with this. I call this one Wooden Daisies. This is just, again, using those little frame pieces, gluing them on canvas in different designs. And I like the way this one came out. The nice light colored wood against the dark black canvas. So those are the kinds of things that I get up to when I'm waiting for paint to dry or waiting for something to set up so I can move to the next step. I get creative. Abstract artists are known for basically seeing everything in abstract, coming up with different ideas, coming up with different things. You know, I walk around all day long and I look at things and I see things and I say, well, I could do this with that. I can do that with this. I like to change things. I like to create things. And that's basically what I like to do as my hobby, profession, whatever you might want to call it. So let's take a look at the finished splash painting, and we'll talk about that. So before I showed you those two little creative ideas I did with the framing sticks, I told you I put the painting up on my table. It's sitting here in front of me. It's maybe about 75% of the way dry, so I kind of feel a little bit comfortable being able to lift it up. So I'm going to just basically take the painting and lift it up here so that you can see it. And I'm kind of going to hide behind it a little bit. But there is our splash painting. Again, this is a technique where I just took the paint and I splashed it across the canvas. I'm trying to stand far enough back with some lights on this so you can kind of see the canvas a little bit. It's a big canvas, so trying to get it in the camera frame without being behind the camera at the same time. But that's our splash painting. Very, very simple to do. I will tell you though, it does take a little bit of practice in order to be able to splash the paint in the directions that you'd like to splash it in. Some people say, you know, you're just pouring paint on a canvas and smooshing it around with a paintbrush. Well, yeah, I mean, you do that, but at the same time, you're trying to be creative enough where you're splashing it in different areas to get that flow going all the way across the canvas. So there you go. 36 by 48 wall-size painting, doing a splash of paint. Give me some creative colors, something nice to look at on the wall. My name is Rick, and this has been Art by Rick. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode where I think we're going to do some real simple acrylic pours. See you next time.
Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lynn.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name's Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the clips with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time.
Step into our store and discover a stunning array of dancewear. Introducing Dancingly Yours, your one-stop shop for all things dance and delight for ages 2 to 92. From tiny tutus to energetic tap shoes, our store is a treasure trove of dance essentials. At Dancingly Yours, we offer an extensive collection of dancewear and accessories that cater to all styles and levels. We carry top brands and the latest fashion trends. From ballet to hip-hop, lyrical to jazz, ballroom to liturgical, as well as gymnastics, you'll find the best selection right here at Dancingly Yours. But we're not just a store. We're a community that celebrates the joy of dance. Our expert team is passionate about dance, just like you. So we're here to assist you in finding the perfect fit. And the best part, Dancingly Yours offers competitive pricing in-store and online. Dancingly Yours, easy to get to and worth the trip from anywhere, right on Route 10 in Plainville.